Good stuff. But okay, Sam, let's keep this party moving. Should we move on to Dr. Jordan Peterson was on Dr. Oz, and there's this short clip. I found it on, one second. I found it on Kyle's video, and I don't know how to go get the extended version and all that. So maybe he talked about other stuff, but we're just going to focus on this little clip and we'll talk about it. And I think it's also relevant to what we've been talking about. So let's just watch this short video and we'll come back to it. Okay, Sam, now that I watched this clip, overall, the reason I was saying that this clip relates to what we've been talking about, especially what Brian and Sovak Zizek were talking about, which is because, Jordan Peterson is kind of saying, people who have radical ideas, which he pretty much equates to being a 14-year-old 14-year-old socialist kid who's taken a 3-week-long class of social justice. I've been to 2 Canadian universities. I've never seen a 3-week-long class, so I'm not sure what he's talking about. And I've never had a class that's based on social justice in that way. I haven't seen it. I mean, he went to a more prestigious university than me. He's a teacher at the University of Toronto, so maybe there they have 3-week-long classes. But there's this comment I sent you, which is just spot on with problems with something that he keeps on doing, Jordan Peterson. I'll flash the comment right here, which is that he always makes it seem like he's arguing with, a bunch of like 21-year-old kids, that everybody who's socialism, who has any kind of socialist or left-leaning idea, they're for sure just these 21-year-olds who just did 2 years of university, and it always seems like he's arguing against them. So yeah, I have some other points I want to discuss, but I don't know if there's some overall things you want to say about this pretty infuriating Jordan Peterson segment, as per usual, if you ask me.
Definitely. I'm just going to say that I'm going to refrain from going very deeply into my criticism, because as we, I think, said on the last show as well, we are working on a sort of a piece, hopefully, on Peterson's thoughts and all that. My general take is
focus on this one video. Exactly. Focus just mainly on this. So let's put his books and stuff aside, which are different, like, and all this. Let's focus on this clip.
Reference on this clip. Well,
if you have other stuff you want to say, feel free. But I'm just saying.
No, I just wanted to give my general view that connecting it to the parenting. That's why I thought these are all good like very well put together, these videos, because at the same time that we want to talk about these privilege and liberal religions that have sprung up, that have all these rituals that are just, they're just like religious rituals. There are no substance to them, material substance. Reading a lot of liberal literature recently, including the works of Mr. Peterson, and in this interview, I think is a good example of that. I think the right and a lot of people on the center, you could argue, have been living that for far longer. I mean, that was why the original attraction to left for me was the fact that they were far more realistic. And I felt this video was a great example of the fact that, because it's like our enemies are uniting, by the way. It's like the, the League of Evil, Brotherhood of the Evil, it's like Dr. Oz meeting Peterson, like two people who, in my view, are almost equally terrible in their treatment of science. I mean, I would say Dr. Oz probably far worse, because that's just goes to medicine. But yeah.
I'm just going to focus on this video. And I mean, I was baffled from the get-go. From the get-go, he asked them, where do you place yourself, on the left to the right? And he first invents his own thing, which is like, fine. I mean, you can kind of come up with your own things, give some justification. So the far right for him is the furthest to the right is not conservative or right-wing. He calls it as traditionalist, which, okay, fine. Then the left, he calls it as creative. So he already comes up with his own categories, or maybe there's a literature with this category that I'm ignorant on. And then this example really got to me, because he's talking about socialism in the beginning and how, and then he says, but he says, but
radical we mess creativity.
Yeah, but he says we mess with fundamental social problems at a great peril. And which then he gives the example of marriage having been destabilized. I'm guessing he's referring to the fact that there are more divorces now. I mean, someone has to tell me the link between, is socialism responsible for there being more divorce rates in the US or Europe or something? I mean, that first one
and why is divorce bad?
And that's another argument. And who says that back then, if people were forced to stay, of course, divorce can be bad, but it's not worse than someone being forced to stay with their husband or wife just because they couldn't get married. That I will give to you. Like, I mean, exactly. I mean, it was just baffling stuff. So go ahead. Then I have some more minor points because it was a small clip, short one.
Oh yeah, I think to get to a more larger point, because I don't want to focus on this person. But when I talk about the mind palace, like why I say this was a great example, is this individual that mind palace is refers to a memory technique, but I'm using it in the sense that the people who seem to drive all their knowledge based on their own experiences and some historical anecdotes they heard. I don't think they have any understanding of history or what are the structural forces that are at force even right now, right? And they go on based on a couple of they put on their whole sort of belief system and identity based on a couple of anecdotes and personal experiences. I've had it, for example, I've had some terrible experience with some person from, let's say, working classes, right? Does that now mean that I should frame all my experiences like that? Or I should, I can use that as a, like, let's say if I have a profession and I'm trying to explain to somebody, I can use that as an example of, for example, trying to point out that a working class person can be terrible, like Nixon, whatever, I don't know, to try to make a point that, let's say, not all groups are monolith, right? But I can't just use, it feels like to me it's been used to just brush off.
He does that with left-leaning people, right?
And besides and that's, by the way, besides the fact that you might not agree, which I completely don't agree with, this whole creativity being connected to leftism and or they're connected to right wing, or this is a framework that is you may agree with or disagree with, but it's not an agreed upon a framework, and it's definitely far from the consensus academic view of how history is taking place or how brain works or any of that. So
China has a lot of order. Where do you place China on the political spectrum back in the day? Maybe when they were even more like statist, communist, and all this. So I mean,
and yeah, it's more orderly in many ways. The left wing, orders that some you could
some bad orders even.
Again, if you that's why earlier on in another video or whatever I said about precisely, and I am so adamant about saying our analogies are not like explanations, are not the analogy is not the explanation. But if you don't talk precisely, you can get away with anything, and he doesn't talk precisely, I think, in this video. So I mean, the question is not even precise. The question is just this idiotic question about out of 10 how how Marxists are you, like.
But I mean, that's what you're gonna do on these shows. I mean, I don't have any. So one other bigger point that he kind of makes before I get to the small one that really pissed me off is like, you shouldn't do anything unless it's degenerating into absolute tyranny. So I don't even know like when you reach that point. And I think Kyle pointed this out. There are a lot of people whose life in even bigger countries that is far from being good, and they would want some kind of change and stuff. So I mean, that whole thing degenerating.
It's ridiculous. It's really good. So if we can't do everything, we shouldn't do anything. It's such a childish. I'm sorry, but but to be, I don't want to. I know people might say, "Oh, Sam is criticizing without reference." We are doing a piece on that. So, and I hope it might be even out before this. I hope.
So I'll just put a final one, which another small thing that really bugged me with this. He talks about these great mentors that he had. You know what lesson his mentors taught him?
I forget now.
That you have to evaluate the output of any policy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mr. Jordan Peterson, you had if that is what you meant, you had all these mentors, because like, there are all these do-gooders and left, and they don't realize when you put on policy, there are, there are repercussions, and there's other things that happen. I mean, of course, who is denying that whether your policy is right wing or left wing, that's going to happen. And evaluating policies, I don't know, maybe this is a new idea that emerged the past 10 or 20 years, but I'm sure evaluation has a slightly longer historical past. I don't
No, no,
I don't know.
no. You're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah,
It's
I
only
maybe
emerged within the last 5 years. And also, they say moderation in all things is a good thing. It's also a very new idea, emerged only recently. And also, try to, don't judge others. Don't judge yourself based on other, like, these are yeah. So this exactly gets to the heart of the problem with these type of people. Anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, that's all I have to say from this little short clip. Do you have anything else you want
But
to
I
add?
hope, I just hope somebody comes to our help. Unite with us. We should call Dr. Horn again. Professor Horn, come with. Enemies are uniting. Sorry, I'm just trying to attach ourselves to something bigger. But